Bumps and bruises, scratches and scrapes, some of the ingredients that a good life makes. But sorrows become success, and as we aim for the top, we will pause, if we must, but we will never stop. Welcome to Simso Sessions. Hi everybody, and welcome to Simso Sessions, a safe space to share your stories. Tonight, we're doing a bit of an extended check-in with two of my favorite previous guests, more specifically, a couple who was on our show. So we started by talking with Brian Cuff about his journey, and then his wife Basillia, we know her as Bas, joined him on set. We're checking in with them out of the feedback from that show, but more specifically, we're getting more from Bas, who was a target of many of our online comments, some of them not very kind. And she's sharing her own story tonight, and then we're going to check in with them together. So with that, we say hi. And welcome to the show, Basillia. It's so good to have you. It's good to see you.
So good to be here, Sid.
I'm so curious, right? Usually, I mean, people have spoken to Brian.
Yes.
But it's her Brian story. Why has Bas really never spoken about anything?
I think mainly because I am normally on the other side doing interviews, being a broadcaster. So I don't think it was intentional not to have spoken about it before, but I think all the focus has always been on Brian and the sacrifices he made, which is fine because I appreciate those sacrifices and I love him for everything that he did for our family. But I just don't think the opportunity came up before now.
But Bas, you've made some pretty deep sacrifices of your own.
Yes.
And we're going to get to that. But let's first talk about the feedback out of the show. You saw some of it. You laugh. You laugh.
I'm laughing because I just find it funny how people can, troll and just spew comments without knowing the full story. And unfortunately, I don't expect better from some people. And I am not in the habit of explaining myself to people either. So when they make their comments, I remember seeing comments like, I can see from she walked on the stage that she is very needy. And that this was on YouTube, yeah. She is very needy and she looks so insecure. And I'm like, how did you get that from 5 minutes of me on the show? But as we said, people will be people, and that's just it.
People are saying you walked out and you didn't even hug your husband, and it was clear that your husband
was crying. And I'm saying, I didn't know he was crying. I was backstage trying to figure out myself. And I couldn't see him. So when I came on the stage and you pointed to where I should sit, I didn't know that Brian was crying. It was after I got on set. I realized that he was crying. So when persons were saying, you came on the stage and you saw that he was crying the entire time and you didn't even hug him, I'm like, folks, we just left each other at home. I didn't know he was crying. They didn't see when the cameras were off and we were embracing each other. But
nobody's thinking about that.
They're not going to think about the production side of it either, and that's okay.
Is that water? Is it all water off your back?
Yes. I am not bothered by people. Yeah. I'm not bothered by trolls. I'm not bothered by comments. And it comes after years of, having experienced it before. So it's neither here nor there for me. I know what I know, and Brian knows what he knows. And those who are to know what they know.
Hey, in other words.
That's all I need.
In other words.
In other words.
But let's talk a little bit about your journey now, which is what we're here to focus on today, before Brian comes back. You had to go through a lot of your own sacrifices.
Yes.
So we've spoken about Brian's. But when Brian left, you had to get used to a world without him.
Yes.
Which came with a lot of its own issues and trappings and problems.
It did.
Like rerouting your life and getting used to a lot of things that you never used to. Because you grow, used to a certain comfort level.
Yes.
When Brian left, a lot of things changed.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about it.
So one of the things that I always said to people, because this is something that we talk about from time to time on our YouTube page, and I said I had a great life growing up. You know, I had a mommy and daddy there, my siblings. My dad ensured that I had everything that I needed growing up. And one of the things that happened when we got married was that we lived together. So we worked together for 6 years and then got married. And then after those 6 years, we had like a year and a few months of marriage together, living in the same space, being in the same space. And then after that, we started living separately. Now, I always emphasize to people we were not separated. We were just living in separate parishes because of our jobs.
Still very much married?
Yes, still very much married. Still very much together, almost 10 years of marriage. January will be 10 years. And one of the things that happened during that process was when we left our first radio job together, I got a radio job in Mandeville, and Brian was working here at RGR Gleno Communications Group. And one of the things that happened was the plan was for me to travel back and forth from Spanish Town, that's where we used to live, to travel back and forth. And it was going good until we found out that we were pregnant. When we found out that we were pregnant, I could not manage the traveling. And so everything changed. And our initial plan of me traveling, because it was convenient, I didn't start working until 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I could, get up in the morning, see him off to work. It was the perfect plan. See him off to work, pack lunch, do my thing, and then get ready, drive down to Mandeville, and then come back up after. I mean, it was like the perfect little fairy tale you could put in a book, like, oh my gosh. And then found out that we were pregnant. When we found out that we were pregnant, we started adjusting, because I'm from Mandeville. So we started adjusting the times that I would come up. So I would stay down probably a day or two, come back up. And then as the pregnancy progressed, I remember one night what kind of drove it home for us that I could not travel. I was probably 6, 7 months pregnant, and I was on my way back home, because I was traveling the entire time, on my way back home, and the car broke down on the highway. And my phone died. And I'm there, pregnant, in the dark, alone, no lights. It was terrifying. When I finally got my phone, I don't know, I tell people all the time, is God just charge up my phone and give me like 2% so I could call my parents and call Brian and call some other people. Everybody came rushing because they knew I was pregnant. And I was there trying to stay calm, trying to not have my blood pressure elevated, anything, because I knew that I needed to stay calm for the baby.
So that was one indication for you. But when things got to where they got and Brian was actually in Kingston and you had decided that you were going to stay in Mandeville, you were then caught in a position where the two of you had to share one vehicle, which is something you're never used to. So Bria came, and all of a sudden, Bas, hold a break, all of a sudden, the charmed life to which you were used was not the same. And you had to get used to this new normal that drove you up the wall and almost drove you crazy. We're going to talk about that when we come back with Bas. We'll be right back. Here with Bas, and we're talking about after you had Bria, right? Now you're sharing one vehicle.
Yes.
Which ostensibly means actually that Brian has a vehicle in Kingston.
Yes.
So what's Bas doing in Mandeville?
Bas was in Mandeville taking taxi with a baby. And that was not something I was used to. I've been driving since I was 18. I had my own car because one of the things that Daddy wanted to ensure was that, he gave me everything I needed so that nobody could come and flash anything in front of my eyes. So I had a car since I was 18. And so when we had Bria and we had to decide, all right, who is going to keep the car? We decided that Brian would. More so me saying to him that I want you to have the car because you were working some odd hours and I did not want you to have to take taxi home because we know the media life after RSPL and matches, he had to be going home very late. And I was worried most of the time. So I said, all right, it's easier for me because I had my parents in Mandeville. my parents would stagger and bring me, but when they were not available, I had to take taxi. And this is with a baby, months old. I had to bring the baby to work. I had a stroller. I remember one time I had her in Mandeville. I was strolling and going along, and the stroller just popped. The stroller just broke, and I just started crying. I started crying in the town. I started crying when I got to work. And then I started to become resentful of Brian for having the car. Mind you, I understood why he had it.
No, you don't have to explain. We get it. We get it. We get it. We get it.
And then from then, I started to develop postpartum anxiety.
So that's what a lot of people don't know, is that you were going through a whole heap of things.
Yes.
How did you navigate through postpartum anxiety with everything else that was going on?
I don't know. It had to be God. It had to be also the fact that I chose to get help. I sought a professional counselor, Kamala McQuinney. You had her on the show. I spoke to Kamala almost every day because I could not figure out why I was feeling the way I was feeling. I was becoming resentful of Brian. I'm like, okay, you're in Kingston living your best life. You are there having the car. When he used to call me and say he's going out, you know, like if he's going bowling, I'm like, going bowling and me here with baby. All right. I wouldn't say no, but in my mind I was like, living your best life while I'm here with the baby. And again, it was a mutual decision. It wasn't something that he decided to do. And I used to go on air after crying my eyes out. I used to cry. I feel like I'm going to start crying. I used to cry like half hour before the show, like for a full half an hour. I'd take the baby to work. I'd hand the baby to somebody, that's Bria. I'd hand her to somebody.
Because at the time you had nobody to watch her.
I had nobody to watch her because mommy was at work, daddy was at work, Brian was in Kingston. And the anxiety that I had leading up to actually going to work, getting to work, and I had to take 2 taxis. It's not just one, 2. One from home to Mandeville, one from in the town to NCU. And when I got there, I just felt this level of anxiety that I knew I couldn't take with me on air. So I would just give her to one of my coworkers. I had amazing coworkers there who would just willingly just watch her for me. And then I would just cry. I would just cry for like 30 minutes. And then brush off, and I turn on the mic, and that is me.
We know that magic, let me tell you. Yeah, or sometimes you cry even when the mic is on.
Yes, I would cry in between when I needed to. I would take a walk and cry if I needed to. But never once did I want my listeners to ever feel that there was something wrong, because I always had it in the back of my mind that there was somebody who was depending on me, depending on us as broadcasters to make their days better. And
so then, my lovely, when you got to the place where you realized you couldn't carry it anymore and you had to walk away from radio, that must have gutted
it was hard.
Why did you make that decision to leave radio?
So initially, I had a 3-year contract with the radio station I was working with. When that 3-year contract expired, I had a decision to make if I wanted to go back into radio, because I had a lot of offers. If I wanted to go back into radio, if I wanted to go into TV, what did I want to do? But then I realized that I did not want to have to carry that emotional burden and still, and I wouldn't say pretend, because as broadcasters, we don't pretend, but we have to put our best foot forward. I didn't feel like I wanted to go through all of that by myself. I didn't feel like I wanted to navigate it. I did it for 3 full years. And I'm talking about crying every single day. I didn't even tell my parents that I was crying because I didn't want them to be worried. I didn't tell Brian that I was crying. I didn't tell anybody about the postpartum anxiety.
You're carrying it alone. It came to a head, and you and Brian decided that it was best he come back to Mandeville, thank God. But that in itself was a drama, because it was a readjustment. First of all the resentment you were carrying played out. This man is now reintegrating himself in your home.
And I'm like,
he's raising the daughter that you raised by yourself, and you're like, who are you? What are you doing here? Like, don't talk to her, don't. That was a readjustment. You said you had to learn how to be a wife again.
I had to learn how to be a wife again. I had to learn how to not be so independent, because remember, for 3 years, I only had him on the weekends. And when he came on the weekends, he was trying to be daddy. And I'm like, I kind of have a structure in place. So you can't really just come and try to be daddy just for a day and then go back. What made us really decide that he should come back to Mandeville, and ultimately it was his decision, because I never wanted him to feel like I guilted him into doing it, so I left him to make that decision. So when he made the decision, I didn't even know. He just told me that, babe, I think it's time. And then we found out we were pregnant again. When we found out we were pregnant again and he was still here at TVJ, oh my goodness, I think my pressure started going up, because I'm like, I'm going to have to go through this again, not just with one, but with 2 babies. And then when I told him we were pregnant, it took probably a month or 2 for him to, decide. I didn't say, you need to come back to Mandeville. I said to him, we're pregnant again. And when he came back, it's like we were married all over again.
Beginning.
It's like we were starting all over, because we were not only starting over by ourselves, we were starting over with a child and me being pregnant again.
All right, hold it there. When we come back, Bass said a part of her difficulty was learning how to resubmit. When we come back, we'll talk more about that. Soon come. Welcome back, everybody. We're here with Bass. Brian is going to join us shortly on set, but we're talking about resubmission. So you're relearning how to be a wife. Essentially, you told me you felt like, Brian, come back. I was interrupting your space.
Yes.
How to resubmission partner? You said you had to learn how to resubmit. What does that mean?
So I had to learn how to be a wife again. I had to learn how to not be so independent of my husband. I felt like I was a single mom for those 3 years that we were living in separate parishes. And so when he came back and he was, really trying his best to integrate himself into our life, into our routine, all of that, I kind of felt like he was disrupting what I had done and I had built for 3 years. I felt like he came and he was trying to be daddy. And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, where were you for the past 3 years? And I was so resentful, because I felt like I have been doing this for so long, and now you are coming and trying to just essentially disrupt what I have been doing for the past 3 years. And so even separate and apart from us being husband and wife and now being mommy and daddy, I had a lot of work that I needed to do on my own. And by that, I mean, I had to learn how to see him as my husband again. I had to learn how to be gentle. I had to learn how to be soft for my husband and not too rough and rigid, because I was like that. I became like that for those 3 years.
You became hardened.
I became hardened.
That's a heavy lift, Bass. How do you do that? Because for some people, that's the end of the marriage. Forget about it. And I asked you guys why you didn't throw it away. And I mean, when Brian comes on set, we can talk a little bit about that. But to let go of that kind of built-up resentment takes work. How did you do that?
I walked away a few times in my mind. I never expressed it, but I walked away a few times. There were points where I had to lean on what I knew versus what I felt, because my feelings were all over the place. And in that moment, I knew that my feelings could betray me. So I had to lean on what I knew, the man I know he is, the vows that we made, the fact that, this hurdle was just in our way as we got married. And I had to remind myself that this was not a case where Brian left us, even though it felt that way.
That's what the narrative had become in your mind?
That's what it had become in my mind. I had to remind myself, so leaning on what I knew versus what I felt. Plus, I had a great community. I had a strong support system in the form of my mom and my dad and my family. My parents will be married for 40 years this year. 40 years?
40
oh my
years.
God. 40 years.
Yeah.
And I remember, people always say, don't tell your parents your problems. But let me tell you, if I did not tell my parents, we would not be here today. And because I knew that my parents could give great counsel I knew that they would not take sides. As much as I am the only daughter, you know, their baby girl, at the front of it all, they had our marriage, you know, in our best interest and in their best interest as well, because they wanted to see us succeed. And so I would go to mommy and I'd say to her, boy, I can't bother, I can't do this. And I said to her, I've been doing this for 3 years by myself. I can do this. I mean, I got this. And my mom would remind me. She would remind me of times before. She would remind me of how he was trying. And so I had to lean on what I knew versus what I felt.
She reminded you of your why.
She reminded me.
You're still working through a lot of the resentment, eh? Still.
Still today, it's been years. But I think one of the main things that I'm still working through is just reminding myself that Bria is ours and not mine.
Yes. Yes, because you raised her.
Yes, for so long.
That you kind of don't want Brian to have no claim on her.
It's like I'm saying, I did this for so long by myself. It's like we have no issues where Bella is concerned because both of us were there the entire time. But there is this little spot in me for Bria that still remembers the times when he, you know, came and wanted to play daddy. And I said play in quotations.
See, a lot of folks in Mandeville thought your father was
Yeah,
dad,
people thought daddy was my
the...
baby daddy because he was at all my doctor's appointments with me, with Bria. He was there with me when I went into labor until Brian had to leave work and come down, and it took him like an hour and a half, probably less because he was just flying. Yeah, and so even today, and that's still something that we're both working through, he has to remind me sometimes, babe, I'm here. Remember, I'm here. And it's been 4 years since we're back together, and he still has to remind me sometimes that I'm here. And he understands as well, and I appreciate that, because sometimes I look at Bria and I still see her as two.
It's okay.
So I'm still working through that.
And you still see her as two because it takes you back to that time. Come on over, Sir Bradbury. I think Bess needs you now. I'm going to head on over to the small chair. You see, nobody can ask why I'm never over. Please and thanks.
Yes, come kiss me, come see me crying.
Hi, Helen. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Is this hard to hear?
I just kissed her to tell her thanks again, because even though I know, every time I hear it, it's like I'm outside looking in. And when you're going through the situation, she wouldn't have shared some of these things, as she said. Even though you're living two different lives, you're trying to work together. I told her she was going crazy. We're trying to work it through, but hearing it is like I caused her pain. I caused her hurt. And when we were coming, you know, I was saying to her, she grew up differently from I did. And I brought, you know, jokingly crosses to her life. And, you know, we had to talk it through that when I say crosses, I don't mean crosses like Jamaicans say crosses.
Yes.
But I brought my cross that I bore and I continue to bear. My mom being unwell, my father being overseas, all of the burdens that I was carrying. I dropped it on her, and she didn't know. She knew them because we were friends for a long time. But the weight of carrying something is different from knowing that the weight is there. So I'm very appreciative of her.
Yeah. You said that program that you both sat on was a little bit of a counseling session for the two of you and an opportunity to hear each other. And, you know, what did you walk away with that day when we sat here?
I walked away with a different level of love and appreciation for her, for God, I understood what our struggle and the process that it took us through. I understood the pain and its purpose. I understood a whole lot more, because even recently somebody screenshot the last 2021 I was here, and they sent it to me saying the memories, you know, are still fresh, and they showed me how much persons have watched it and all of the comments. And I was like, it's our pain, it's our process, but it has a greater purpose.
Oh, yeah.
And I think sometimes we overlook the fact that the purpose is at the end of the process, but we want to get to the purpose really quick.
Yeah, that's not the order.
That's not the order.
That's not the order. You say it also made you walk away knowing that some things had to be done differently?
Yeah, yeah. I think we grow up, and even today in society, we romanticize love. We see the romantic side of love, and we see the sugar and the spice, but we forget that it's a balanced meal. Yeah, so the proteins, the carbohydrates.
Yeah, no, food and nutrition.
Yeah, we don't want the vegetables which are bitter, but good for us.
Yeah.
We don't want the carbs. We just want the sugar. We just want the feel-good side. And that is what is in the media. But love is I use John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave. Love gives. And there was pain involved in all of that. And he deliberately chose to give his son for us. And we've given a lot, and we've received a whole lot.
Yeah.
And I think that we are learning that love evolves, and love looks differently at different stages and different ages. And that is what is the truth. It's not just the feel good.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more about what has happened since 21 when Brian was on this coach, and how these two are still working at it even today. I mean, obviously on a better path, but it's still work. So more with Bas and Brian after this. All right, so Bas and Brian are here with us, and you guys say since the show you've been really working at it because marriage is not magic, a lot of work. And I understand there's still days, Basillia, where y'all can't stand each other. You said,
If there's any married couple who said that every day it's all dandy and rosy, I'd be like, that has not been our experience. But let me tell you, I think after we found our rhythm, after he came back and we readjusted, and it took probably like a year to kind of just readjust to having each other every single day, because we're not used to that anymore. I think after we found our rhythm, and then COVID hit, and I'm like, not at COVID, but we were spending so much time together now. So it felt like those lockdowns, those quarantines, no, we never quarantined, together. Those lockdowns together served to help us to get closer.
you say it restored.
It did. I don't thank God for COVID. I thank God for the opportunity it presented. And so many opportunities came out of this season. But the fact that we were able to spend so much time together, he didn't have to go out to work. I didn't have to go out to work. We had the girls together at home. He got an opportunity to know Bria. And it may sound strange, but he got an opportunity to know her. And I had to find a place where I could allow him to now be daddy, because Bria loves our daddy. She loves him. I had to find a place where I just stepped back, still working on the stepping back.
Literally, sometimes she just take care of herself.
And just go somewhere and just leave them so that he could be daddy. And so in that season, when COVID hit and we were at home all the time, I think that's when the restoration began, and I am so grateful.
Oh,
so grateful.
Brian, that readjustment. Bas tells me how it was for her. What was it like for you?
They say absence make the heart grows stronger, but there's a side I've learned that presence strengthens it. And being in the presence of her.
That's why I married him, you know. Yes,
being in her presence. I remember when I was doing math, I was struggling. And my aunt sent me to a math class that was like 4 hours. And I sat there. I was just fed with math until it got to a point when I was doing exams. I was like, I saw this when I was going to class.
Recall.
It's the same thing. You know, I was there now so much in her presence, in the marriage, that when situations arose, I started like, we can do this.
We can do that.
And you said if you guys had listened to the counsel of friends, you wouldn't be sitting here today.
Well, there were persons who... There are people who from day one say, honeymoon stage, by a year or two, you guys will see what this love thing is really about. And we had to find, this Jamaican say, they pick sense from nonsense. You have to find, you hear everything, but you choose and you filter what becomes you and what you live. So there are days
I asked why you guys stayed, why you stayed. Bas said something to me that was very instructive, that I thought was very powerful. In the moment, sometimes you find yourselves warring, and I mean that, you know what I mean by that. But at the end of the day, what it boils down to when the dust settles is that you guys realize you're on the same team. Yeah. Two people on the same team, and you wanted the same thing.
We wanted the same thing. We were just on different paths, but we all had the same. We had the same end goal. We wanted to reach the finish line. We wanted to be happy. We wanted to be great parents. And so again, leaning on what we knew versus what we felt was really what kept me and Brian's determination to make it work. Because as the woman, at one point, I was just done. I remember one day he was trying to talk to me. I'm like, stop talking to me. And I'm walking through the house, and this man is walking behind me. I'm like,
when you have something good, you don't let it go.
Walking behind
When you have something good, you don't let it go. When we were dating and people never knew, my friends were trying to set me up with gold. Them say, you know, see the piece of gold. I had the gold, but they didn't know.
They didn't know.
They're setting me up. And now that I have the gold, it's something that I treasure. I treasure her. We have different mindsets because of different upbringings, but we both want marriage to work. We both have an end goal of happiness. It's just that we have different views about how we get there, but we're working at it. Some days we don't like each other, we can't stand each other, but we love
there.
We love each other.
And that element of communication, because Bas, you say, or Brian, you admit that the other day you were sleeping?
Yeah, yes.
And Bas said to you, hello?
Yes, hello, please.
You're sleeping, and you said?
I went on an intimacy challenge, 7 days, to just share in her love language, just forgot about me. And I was just feeding her with love, everything, holding her hands, waking up, kissing her, sending her texts. I had to be deliberate. It's a word she ingratiated into our marriage, right?
Come, don't make me take it back to speech.
Right?
Ingratiated, right? I look at you, I looked at you.
I taught them both speech, so don't embarrass me. But you ingratiated. Yes. Ingratiated.
Yes, in our marriage. So I'm deliberate, and we are deliberate in getting there.
Yeah. It's a message of consistency you spoke to me about.
That's the consistency, the hardest thing. The thing that we as humans are most consistent with is inconsistency.
Yeah.
So even when I did the 7 days, after that again I fell off. Yeah, I realized the benefits, but I still fell off. I know what it does for us, for her, but I still fall off because I get busy. I have to be a daddy, and sometimes I forget to be a husband. But I have to remind myself over and over again that love is something that takes work.
Yeah. And that's why I married him in Jesus'
That's
name.
why she married him. She's one thing we're consistent about on this show is our good vibes feature. Never inconsistent with that. Run it, Madam Produce.
Hey Bas and Bri, you know that I love you very, very much, both as a unit and individually. And I just want to encourage you guys to keep soaring to higher heights, and remember that whenever an obstacle may present itself, it's just another opportunity to share and remind the world that love conquers all. Love you guys so much. Keep pushing, keep being strong, and keep showing the world how it's done. All right? Mwah, mwah, mwah. Love you.
Basillia and I have been friends for over 20 years from we were in high school, and from that time she was manifesting her marriage. She always spoke about what she wanted her marriage to be like, the fact that she wanted to get married. She always emphasized that fact, and I can personally say that, Brian, you have exceeded those expectations. And for me personally, happiness is something that I want to see in all of my friends, all of my friend relationships. I want to see everybody happy, and you have made Basillia extremely happy. All right, I just want you guys to continue to do what you're doing, continue to keep up your endurance, your faith in each other, believing in each other. And I admire that about you guys, that you guys, no matter what it is, you guys believe in each other, you have each other's back. And I want you to continue doing that and continue to do the good job that you're doing with your girls. Love you guys.
Hi Auntie and Uncle, you guys make such a great couple, and I just wanted to say the things that I love about you. First, I'm happy that you guys provide for me, and I'm happy that you take care of me. Second, Auntie, I'm happy that you used to babysit me when I was a baby. And third, Uncle, I'm happy that you look out for me when something is wrong. And fourth, I just love you both so much. Thank you so much for living, and thank you for such beautiful, loving, and caring and kind cousins. If you guys weren't here, my sweet cousins would never have existed. I love you guys so much, and I thank God that you're alive. I love you.
One thing I've learned over the last 2 years of my marriage is that marriage is not an easy road. It comes with many challenges. But the one thing that I've learned, and this I learned from you guys, is that no matter how difficult situations get, no matter how hard things are, even when you're at the brink of giving up, you know, you can overcome. You guys have lived that testimony that marriages can survive. You have set that example for even me, and trust me, I honor that. And I just want to say, you know, continue doing it. Continue doing the good work. Continue to show young people that marriages do work.
Just want to congratulate you both for being the wonderful couple you are, being a great dad and mom to two beautiful girls, a friend and mentor to many. So on behalf of your moms and your dads, wishing you both God's richest blessing, that you continue to grow in the same vein, being a blessing to the nuclear and extended family, knowing they are all rooting for your success. Despise what is evil, cling to what is good, be devoted to each other and continue to grow in God's grace. Hold on to the inner beauty of that soul that never fades. As the book of Solomon says, for love is as strong as death. Love flashes like fire. Continue to enjoy what you love, and blessings to you both.
You always prayed that you wanted a husband just like your dad. And can I tell you? Your prayers were answered. Brian, you're a great father, a great husband, a great provider, a good husband for my daughter. And so I'm thankful to God that you choose her or she choose you, not sure, but you chose each other. Thank God for that decision. I just want to say that yes, we know you have struggles in the past, but we know that you are strong. Together, you will be stronger. And with God's help, we know that you will make it. You are always victorious. Just remember that.
Two of the most wonderful people that I've ever met in all my life. But let me start with Brian. Brian is a young man that is so talented. Brian is kind. Brian is creative. Brian is a family man. You know, when it comes on to respect, man, trust me, he's such a respectful young man. You know, and I am so proud that my daughter found a man that is, you know, he's just an awesome young man. And trust me, Brian, really love you. Basillia, oh man, you are my baby girl. And trust me, Basillia, you know, when you came into this world, they say we should have called you Gilberta, because you were born right at the time when Gilbert struck. And you know, I knew you'd have been a very special girl, absolutely special. Why? Because when you came into this world, the first thing you saw was a light beaming down on you, nothing else. Because the nurses, the midwives had to use a flashlight, you know, for you know, when you were coming, you know, for your delivery. And so this light is indicative of who you really are, a beacon, a city that's set up on a hill that cannot be hid. And that's who you are. You are a mover and a shaker. You are a life changer. And I'm so proud to call you my baby girl. Love you, Bas. Love you, Brian. I know this road is a struggle, but hey, keep on with the struggle.
I love you, Mama and Dad. I love you so much. I want to hug you for the phone. Even I love you so much, I want to hug you so tight. And I want you to stay at home. That's it. I love you. I love you, Mom and Dad. And I just thank you for providing for me. And I just thank you for giving birth to me, both of you. And I just love you so much. I wouldn't be here if you weren't there. And you wouldn't be there if I wasn't there. So I just thank you so much, and I always will be there for you. And I will always stay by your side, and I know you would always love me. I love you too so much, and I know you'll always provide for me, and you will always stay by my side too. And your love is right here in my heart. I love you.
Where did I get them fitting to them? Lord Jesus. What's happening to them sweets? You guys, your village. Brian, speak quickly so we can go to break, sir.
Your father spoke about the light, and I just want to thank you for being the light in my life.
Thank you.
That's what you are.
Thanks for not putting it out. Life can get hard. Thank you for helping me to fuel the fire. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys, let it burn. Let it burn. Take a break. We cap the show after this. So now, Brian, you've watched Bas find a new happiness in her social media journey. You say you were scared initially.
Oh, yes.
But now you're fully on board.
Yes. Initially, it's uncharted territory. But watching her and even being there with her through a lot of it, I see she's happy, she's making others happy, and it's another aspect to the purpose of her life. And I love how she's glowing, you know. There were moments when she was dark and feeling it, you know, even in a 9 to 5, you know, this joy that I see was never existent. So it's choppy at times, but together we ride out the storm.
After we spoke, Bas, you messaged me back and you said, Sim, I had no idea my message was so deep.
I didn't know I had a story.
You didn't know you had a story,
not
Basillia?
until I said it out loud. I didn't know because, you know, I always watch the show and I'm so inspired by things other people went through. But because I've never spoken so in-depth about my journey, I didn't know I had a story. I didn't know I had a story that could be explored for this long. You know, I thought, you know, you talk about it and then we move on. But, you know, this journey has been amazing. This new whole content creation journey, again, it was birthed out of COVID, out of not going back into media. And, you know, I am just so happy because it has opened other opportunities. I've gone into commercials. I've gone into so many other different things, being on billboards, etc. So it has just been amazing. And I'm happy that, again, when I say Brian fuels my fire in every aspect of my life.
He's behind the camera.
Yes, he's behind the camera. He's producing. When I told him I wanted to leave my university lecturing job and pursue content creation full-time, he did not say, hold it right there. When I explained to him the possibilities and what I could see beyond what was happening at that time, I said, babe, I just need a little bit more time to dedicate to this. I just need to free up my time because at the time I was teaching over 100 students. I was an academic advisor. I was coordinator for the radio emphasis. So I was doing a lot. So I did not have a lot of time to pursue content creation. And I knew that if I just needed an opportunity.
And you got it.
And I got
and it. Took off.
Let me tell you.
Took off. So you're in a new season, a new phase.
Yes.
Happiness
Yes.
abounds. You wear it well because you are glowing for true. A word, you have 30 seconds, both on understand broadcasting.
Yes.
To folks who are struggling in their relationships and think they can't make it. Some people really just have to walk away because some relationships are rotten to the core.
I was going to
toxic.
say that, yes.
But okay, so let me just, I wouldn't bother phrase it then. People who are struggling in their relationships, what do you tell them? Does love conquer all?
I will say that true love, reciprocated, true love based in God, true love that has a firm foundation, conquers all. And I know that our situation may not be the same as yours. And no, we're not saying that you should ride out toxic relationships. We're not saying you should ride out relationships where you are being abused, etc. What we're saying is love still exists. True love still exists. And in times when you don't feel it, sometimes you just have to lean on, as I said, what you know. And I know, I've always known that I have a great husband. And so I had to lean on that. So there was no question about, Lord, may I do all of this for this man? No. There was no question about it. Sometimes just lean on what you know versus what you feel. True love still exists.
Should we give her the last word? I want to jump in.
Yeah, I'm giving her the last. I was trying to give her the signal to break, but...
yes, Mr. Producer.
Go.
what is not the romanticized side of love is what we need in a time like this. We need the love that is unconditional, the deliberate actions of love, and not just the feeling of love.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Bass. I wish you guys abundant happiness always. And thank you for being here and sharing your story.
You're welcome.
And now it is time, everybody, for our affirmation. So love is a journey and a destination. More twists and turns than Fern Gully. Some roads smooth like highway, others so many potholes it shake out your soul case. Have you even lived though if you've never loved? Love is a beautiful thing, but man, does it take a lot of work. In fact, like faith, love without works is dead. And many relationships, unfortunately, die because of one hand clapping, or just a realization that the best thing for both parties is simply to walk away. But for those who are able to stick it out and work it out and keep walking hand in hand on that journey toward the destination, may your way be paved with lifelong happiness and a whole lot of love. Tonight we are affirming, my love can win if we're both all in. And that is our soul food and our show for this evening. Thank you very much for watching. We are here next week with another story of the power of the human spirit. Until then, every blessing, and please remember to count your blessings. Good night, everybody.